Well, all right. We are back on this show. 54 is the mic. 54 is the mic. Yellow, yellow, yellow. Okay, we are here. Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. All right. It's time to move on to the NBA, back into the NBA, because we have to talk about, a lot of teams that went home in the second round of the playoffs. And there's a lot of questions, to be determined. All these teams that we could potentially bring up in this topic, they have a pivotal offseason. However, we can't let this go that easy. Okay, we can't really state the obvious that easy. We have to try to come up with a debate and be creative with how we debate sports, and that's exactly what this topic is regulated for us to do. Now, with that being said, the question is as follows: which NBA team has the most pivotal offseason following playoff exit? Okay, and Zay, the mic is yours.
For me, if we're basing it just off the second round, I'm going off
You
the
can go
Phoenix.
anywhere. You can
Anywhere?
go first round, second round, any playoff exit, any.
Well, my initial reaction is the Memphis Grizzlies. They have a pivotal offseason because they're planning on letting Dylan Brooks walk. John Morant might be suspended for the full season. We don't know what is going to happen in regards to him. And who the hell is what's going to happen on this roster? What's going to happen with this team? You're losing arguably your best defender and your best scorer in the same offseason. And now what is going to happen moving forward for the Memphis Grizzlies? Is Desmond Bain going to be the star player, the number one option on this team? What's going to happen with everyone else? How is this offense, this team going to operate without their two arguably best guys in the locker room and moving forward for this season? Is it to be a tough job for Taylor and the head coach, and it's gonna be difficult for this organization to really recoup what's to happen in Memphis. It was already a steep hill climbing up because you got the Denver Nuggets and the Suns adding KD and all this other stuff. There's a lot of different variations in the Western Conference that makes it difficult for the Memphis Grizzlies to recover from these losses, especially with the Kings showing who they were this season. And we'll see if it's a fluke or not in the next season. But the Memphis Grizzlies have a pivotal offseason because they have a lot of decisions to make, and they have to make it swiftly because it's going to be difficult to really fix these issues on the team because everything is outside the basketball court. It's not a on the court issue. Everything's off the court. So how the hell do you fix that and try to bring in some guys that are in win now scenarios? So Memphis Grizzlies for me are one of the teams that are most pivotal this offseason.
Yeah, I'm down to give a deeper dive after we give our teams. You gave your team, I'm gonna give mine, and then we can, do a deep dive if we want to with these other potential nominees for this topic. Because to be fair and to be exact, like I stated before, there's a lot of teams that have a pivotal off season, even teams that didn't make the playoffs, right? So we can be here all day. But I guess to narrow the gap, if I do a process of elimination here, because I really got to talk myself into it, because I think it's close. If we want to start off with the Knicks, right? Just to briefly touch on them, I think a lot of people gave us a pass for our Miami Heat loss because there wasn't a lot of preseason expectations. And, a lot of people were saying maybe we can just get in playing game, and we actually got the 5 seed, and we actually won a playoff series against a Cavaliers team with Donovan Mitchell, who we wanted to get. And a lot of people thought we was going to be doomed because we didn't get him. So I understand it from that perspective. However, I do think it's a pivotal offseason in a way because as any franchise, any team, you should be wanting to get better every year. Okay, the Knicks have an opportunity to become a powerhouse Eastern Conference team, but I still think they have to be aggressive to make that happen, right? So, we talked about Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets, and there's this, hypeness. I hear it all the time on the show with you and Zach. Aaron Rodgers, yes. We never had a guy like Aaron Rodgers. The Knicks never had a guy like Aaron Rodgers either, to be exact. We never. Okay, maybe Kevin Durant was the closest thing we could have had to a guy like Aaron Rodgers, and we missed out on him. Actually, we didn't miss out on him. We pulled out, which ended up being a good thing, in hindsight. But still, I still think we should go after the Giannis if we can. People over there, hopefully it doesn't kill our draft capital, which it probably is, and our players. But we should be wanting to get better. So I think this offseason is pivotal in us taking another step and not taking a step back. As you remember, when we made the playoffs a couple years ago, we was passive in the off-season market, and we didn't make the playoffs. We took a step back because of that. We was aggressive this off-season. Some people said overpay. You overpaying for Jalen Brunson. Well, now we got our future point guard for the future, long term. and he helped us literally get this far. Julius Randle, Tibbs, did we reach our ceiling with them as the number 2 and head coach? Because Julius Randle wasn't a factor in that first round series. He barely played against the Cavaliers, and we did just fine, right? So did we reach our ceiling? I understand he transformed from a role player to a All NBA, 2-time All NBA player. Kudos, but did we reach our ceiling? Is that the ceiling for him? Can he get better? Tibbs, we know he spoils out after a while. Ceiling. So I think it's pivotal over there. So I'm not gonna go with them because we did get a leash because of the expectation. The Warriors, right? I thought about going here because it's a very crucial time, but I'm gonna explain why I ain't gonna choose them later on. I'm going to go ahead and get my team. I'm going to go with the Suns. I think they have the most pivotal offseason right now. And the reason why I say so is because I feel like they are moving further and further away from that NBA Finals. We remember a couple years ago they got there. They was up 2-0 over the Milwaukee Bucks, and everybody was ready to throw the parade. CP3, you're about to get a ring. Yes, sir. We want you to get a ring, CP3. Devin Booker. Yes, sir. We want you to get a ring. Monty Williams. All that you've been through from your personal life. You about to get a ring. Yes, sir. No. Okay. They lost 4 straight games and they choked, right? Now you talk about them last year. They lost, I believe, in the second round. Second round, they lost to the Mavericks in game 7, and they traded for Kevin Durant because they wanted to expand the championship window. So they thought, right? But I really feel like they're moving further and further away because you look at the emergence of Mikal Bridges in Brooklyn. One could argue, in hindsight, Brooklyn won the trade, okay, because of how he's evolving into a number 1 option. And it just makes me scratch my head about what if Monty Williams gave Mikal Bridges more offensive opportunities, you know, in Phoenix. Did you have to trade for Kevin Durant? Would you rather a younger, star in the making than Mikal Bridges, who will give you, unlike Kevin Durant, who will give you a full schedule, a full 82? Kevin Durant is not going to give you a full 82, right? And that was evident when he first came onto the team and he got hurt. So I think it's pivotal because you have 4 players making about $145 million between the core of Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, CP3, and DeAndre Ayton, right?
Mhm.
However, I do expect the Suns to let go of CP3 and DeAndre Ayton. I'll be surprised if both of those guys are back on this team next year, right?
Mhm.
Now, I heard a lot about the Ayton and Kyrie swap. I think that makes sense to me because I think from both perspectives, you talk about the Mavericks, I think Ayton is a better fit with Luka
Mhm.
than Kyrie. They both do the same thing. They both need the ball, and without the ball, they are not as effective as basketball players. If Kyrie goes to the Suns, then you're talking about a better point guard than CP3 at this stage of his career, and more athletic, more faster. CP3 is more methodical. Kyrie Irving is more push it, and then you have to respect the isolation play and choose the isolation move like that you want to guard. Like, do I guard Kyrie? Do I guard Kevin Durant? Do I guard Devin Booker? We saw Devin Booker literally have almost the best postseason of anybody, right? Minus the last 2 games. But I say that to say that it's very pivotal. They need a head coach, right? They
Mhm.
need a head coach. They fired a head coach. Them in Milwaukee, they need head coaches. So that's another thing they have to look out for as well. So I think they have the tougher task. The Warriors already won their championships. Okay, so I understand they want to prolong it, but they already won. Like, yes, there's pressure to continue it, but they won already. The Suns didn't, and they was this close to doing it, and now I feel like they're moving further and further and further away, slowly but surely, and that's why I'm going with them.
Another team that I'm looking at right now that has a pivotal offseason is the Minnesota Timberwolves. You added Rudy Gobert to this raw team who had an extremely high supermax deal. You have Karl Anthony Towns who's also on a supermax deal. Both guys are registered to make close to $50 million per year each. So what the hell do you expect to do moving forward, and how do you mitigate that? You have to trade one of the bigs because you have to build the talent around Anthony Edwards. He's the future of this team. He's the best player on this team. You have to build assets around him. There's no reason why you have 2 guys making $50 million per year each and they're not putting you closer to an NBA Finals. That doesn't make any sense to me. Most teams in the league don't have 2 supermax players on the team unless they A, already won a championship, or B, are closer to winning a championship. So that's something the Timberwolves need to figure out immediately because that roster is not built for the playoffs with Karl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, both playing on the same court at the same time. You have to pick one or the other. Who's the guy that's going to put you over the top? And you have to make that decision this offseason. So the Timberwolves have some hefty decisions to make because they're pricey nonetheless. So it's going to cost a lot to get rid of those guys. You might have to move picks to move a Karl Anthony Towns or Rudy Gobert contract because as talented as they are in their respective positions, they are not gonna go away for a cheap cost, or you're gonna get the benefit of the doubt in a deal. So you have to figure out which team is willing to get part ways with assets and players so that they can acquire a Karl Anthony Towns or Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have a lot of questions as well as they try to build around Anthony Edwards, and that experiment was doomed from the start, and I feel like they're going to have to aggressively try to fix that and rewrite that. I doubt they'll be able to move off of Rudy. They will more than likely be able to move off of Towns, so we'll see how they, finesse that situation over there. I think for me, if I had to give you a runner up, I did thought about the Warriors from the perspective of you know, um, they trying to pull on the dynasty. Bob Myers, their architect of that dynasty. Who knows what his future is, right? I think if they lose him, then you can probably say the dynasty is really, really like crumbling to the point where the walls of Jericho is collapsing because that was a guy that was the architect of what they're building. And they lose him. I don't know what to say. And I think the Warriors, in a sense, their dynasty is over. Now, I'm not saying that they can't win another championship. Anytime you have Stephen Curry, still at the prime of his career, you're going to have a chance. You're going to have a shot. But I feel like they'll win a championship sporadically. Like, if anything, they might not win it next year, but I can see them maybe the year after. It all depends on a lot of factors. I think for me, what literally made the Warriors dynasty collapse or collapsing right now is when you reflect back, and I think this is very under the radar. Reflect back to that 2020 draft. That was a very important draft. That was the most pivotal part of the Warriors dynasty. Not now. It was then, 2020, right? Remember they didn't win a championship before that year. They were bottoming out, and they had an opportunity after they bottom out to get a superstar, a star player to play alongside Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. And they chose to go with Wiseman, who was a project from day one. I never liked the pick from day one, even though it was a positional need. It still wasn't enough. It was still too much of a project to pass up on a LaMelo, to pass up on a Tyrese Halliburton, who we know he can shot create and do all the things he can do. So they missed those two guys. Imagine those two guys playing with those two guys on Golden State, Steph and Klay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would think that would open the window even further. And the fact that they missed out with that high pick in that draft and some of the draft moves that they made or plays that they didn't develop, like Mooney and Kaminga, it literally closed the window. Because even though they won a championship, because I know that they say, well, they won a championship last year. Yeah, with no young stars being a primary factor in that. It was Steph going off and maybe an occasional Klay Thompson game. Wiggins took a step last year,
Mm-hmm.
and Poole, he was off and on, but he did better than he did this year. So that's why they won it. But if they had that star, the window would have been open on the long term. So the short term, that draft didn't really impact them in the short term because they won a chip. But the long term, it impacted them. And I think that's why their window's closing. And that's why they were number 2 for me.
Real quick, I just want to touch base. I guess the third team for me. Well, quick, I just want to talk about the Knicks. You talked about making chances, taking risk on free agency or going after it. There's players out there, but it's all about how do you want to tackle free agency because the Knicks went to the second round for the first time in a decade. Do you want to make a dramatic change and kind of alter the progress you just made with these young guys and stuff like that and try to shoot for the stars right away? Or do you want to keep building? Personally, I want to keep building. But if you're going to go after a guy, people are rumoring Karl Anthony Towns. I'm more towards looking at Clippers, PG, or Kawhi Leonard. Because if you want to make the splash, go and make the big splash. The guys who, when healthy, are making impacts on the floor, on both sides of the floor. Karl Anthony Towns, as talented as he is offensively, he doesn't have the grit for that defensive-minded player. He doesn't go after rebounds. He's not much of a defender in the paint or perimeter. His bread and butter is offense, and he's worth $50 million a year, and he'll be the highest cost player on the team because all of our players are within the $25 million to $30 million per year threshold. Nobody's above that. So if you want to go after a player, a marquee player that's available, sure, go ahead. But you may be moving backwards before moving forwards, as we saw with that Knicks team after we had Alfred Payton and Reggie Bullock. We was 4th seed. The next year, they didn't make the playoffs with upgrades, Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier. We made the dramatic changes, but we didn't realize the importance of what we changed.
I don't
And
even think that was dramatic changes. I think it was like
well,
nobody was
we
losing
traded
their
defense. We
mind.
traded defense for offense. That's
Yeah,
what I'm
but
saying.
it
Dramatic
wasn't like
changes.
dramatic. Like nobody was like, "Oh, Kemba Walker's coming! Oh my gosh, we
Oh,
are going
what
to the
they
finals!" Like no,
they love Kimba. They thought
now
Kimba was gonna be.
they love Kemba because of the reunion, theatrics of the situation from the Bronx, da da da. But I know I wasn't. And
Yeah.
if you had any friends that was, "Oh my gosh, Kemba's coming," then maybe you shouldn't, be social. I'm not gonna tell you to socialize with your friends, but
I'm just
my
saying that
God,
people looked at Kimba Walker as an upgrade to Alfred Payton. Like no one looked at
yeah,
Alfred Payton. They
fair,
thought it was an
fair.
upgrade, and they thought we would have been better that season before, but we didn't take into account what Alfred Payton did for the Knicks defensively, what he did playmaking wise. He was healthy on the court most of the games. Evan Fournier to Reggie Bullock. Bullock, he wasn't a shot creator, but he was a marksman out there on the perimeter and a defender. When you remove those two guys, you put in two offensive-minded players who don't defend, we saw a different outcome. A team that was not only physically fatigued, but mentally fatigued because of losing, not being able to play well. And then that's when the Play the Kids anthem came on. When Play It Quickly, Play Grimes, Play McBride, and all the kids Sims. And that's when Tibbs listened and finally did that. But nonetheless, it's an argument between Knicks fans. It's a civil war going on between Knicks fans. Half of them say trade for a star. The other half say grow the kids and we're fine. It can go either way. There's arguments on both sides, but it is a pivotal offense to see what the front office does because they could make a dramatic move and say we want to go for it all now and make a change that could change the future of the Knicks. Or they could play the course, keep growing the kids, and hopefully we build a contender, not only a contender, a threat in the Eastern Conference with the kids we have developed on the team. So, like I said, either way is not the wrong way, but it changes on what team wants to look at their future and what team is looking at the now.
Yeah, and I guess my response to that is, I think there's a different expectation now. And I think with different expectations, it means, more pressure. With loftier, how can I say it? When you accomplish expectations and actually exceed expectations, there's loftier expectations the following year. So if you're the Knicks, do you want to run it back with the current roster you have? You also got some dead weight on the team. You got to try to get off Fournier. I think Rose is gone. First of all, I think if anything, we need to get rid of the weight that's holding us back, that literally just sitting on the bench. We got to get rid of those right there. And then think about the other tactical, strategic moves. I don't think we should just go crazy star hunting. I think we do have to take in consideration health, fit, little things like that. Just don't go after the Kemba Walkers who was coming off an injury, who had to get a buyout. You know what I'm saying? Nobody wanted him. Not that type of move, but a move where you have a star who's still at the prime of their career that you can give Jalen Brunson some help. We already got our point guard, right? We got our point guard locked down. He's in the prime. He's entering the prime of his career. He did an amazing job at the playoffs, averaging like 30 points per game in the playoffs. One of the best players in the playoffs. We can go for it now. So I think if you have an opportunity to go for the gusto, and if it's hefty, fine, depending on who the star is. If it's Giannis, if it's I know a lot of people may like Luka. I know you're not into the Luka, but whoever it is, if we going for the gusto, we have to be smart and strategic about what we giving up, who we willing to sacrifice in the deal, how many picks we are willing to sacrifice, and go for it. If we can go for a mid-tier star who could, replace the production of a person on our roster, for example, let's say RJ Barrett, because I'm pretty sure in any trade for a star level player, RJ Barrett is going to be the centerpiece of the deal. Between him, Quentin Grimes, and maybe Quickly. But let's focus on RJ. RJ, this regular season wasn't the best regular season. He did step this game up in the playoffs outside of that game 6 situation in Miami. So, would you be willing to, I guess this is a question, would you be willing to sacrifice, his production for a guy like PG, right? For a guy like I don't really like this guy, but let's say, for example, for good measure, DeMar DeRozan, who averaged 22 points per game. Will you be willing to sacrifice RJ for a guy that we know, and let's say DeMar DeRozan, who is going to give you consistent buckets? Obviously, he's not going to impact you from a three-point shooting perspective. He's not a three-point shooter, but he'll knock down a few. But we know what we get from DeMar. We still trying to figure out what we get for RJ, what we are going to get from RJ. Is that a deal that's enticing, to pair alongside Jalen Brunson?
I think some fans would be enticed to it. Me personally, my opinion, I'm on a boat of develop the kids, develop IQ, develop Grimes, develop RJ. They're all around 22, 23 years old. So 3 years from now, we don't even know what their ceiling is going to be, where they're going to be at. So I think for me, I want to develop them more because we're all talking about a series where we're missing shooters. We're talking about guys, Grimes and IQ, who shot uncharacteristically the entire series. And I think, with them being developed more and more, getting this experience, playing more time, I think they'll be special. I think I think RJ's career is gonna eclipse over a DeMar DeRozan, over a Paul George. I think they have the opportunity to do so. And that's for me. I think the Knicks shouldn't look to trade RJ unless you're getting back a Luka Doncic, a Dame Lillard, a guy who's been there, the guy who's been named as a top player in the league before. I wouldn't move RJ for anything less than that. And that's how I feel, because it doesn't make sense to move RJ for DeMar DeRozan, a Paul George, when Paul George is a guy who's barely on the field, a court. He's hurt all the time. And then when the playoffs roll around, he's battling injuries, batting through them, and it's not helping his team win. And I think that's something. And he's also a high volume scorer. So, I think for me, if you're going to move RJ, you got to make sure you're bringing back one of the top players in the league, somebody that is unquestionably better than everybody we're trading. It has to be one of those guys, because if it's not, I'm not a fan of just trading RJ, Grimes, and quickly. And even when last year, when Donovan Mitchell was the conversation, the trade, who we were going to trade and get rid of, I was on the fence of trading Donovan Mitchell for RJ or Bradley Beal or stuff of that nature. Those are the guys who had better teams around them and they couldn't get it done. They had the better players around them and couldn't get it done. So I wasn't a fan of, okay, we're going to trade all of the role players for these guys to bring them over here so they can't get it done over here. That doesn't make sense to me. So I think for me, it has to be a guy that I am 100% confident in, that's going to come in and be impactful day one. I'm talking about Dame Lillard, Lucas, Giannis. Like, if we're going to trade RJ and the young players and picks, go after those guys. Don't just bring in anybody and just trade RJ.
We'll have to see what the Knicks decide to do, but I do agree that it's a pivotal offseason. No matter how you slice it and dice it, there's expectations now. We didn't have this year. We overexceeded the ones that, the expectations that were set out there playing. We won the playoff series. Now there's expectations, and that's why I'm going to leave it there. As far as any last notable nominees here, I think we talked about the 76ers earlier on the show. They are definitely in this category. Who knows how they will place Harden if he goes. Do they give Maxey the keys, which I'm expecting them to do? Does Shake Milton fill that Harden role? How do they, finesse that? They obviously want to build around Embiid. He wants to win a championship. He never got out of the second round. This is back-to-back year conference semifinals they lost. So Doc Rivers, who knows about his job security, and if they do let him go, who they replace him with, they have a lot of questions this offseason. So a lot of teams do as well. But I like my Suns pick number one, and I'm going to leave it there.
Solid pick, man. Hey, listen, it's already here, essentially, offseason for a lot of teams. But I think just like the NFL season, as we heard a lot of stories throughout the offseason, the NBA, as soon as the 76ers lost, Harden to the Houston Rockets already ramped up as is. So I think, this offseason is going to ramp up pretty quickly once every team is lost. The NBA Finals is chosen. And I think the offseason is going to just pick up right where they left off in the regular season. It's going to be just like how the NFL season is. A lot of news, a lot of rumors, and I honestly can't wait for it.
And the Bucks is looking for a coach as well to replace Mike Budenholzer. You can look over there as well. So lots of questions. Will we get answers? I'm pretty sure we will soon.
Please like and subscribe for all the up-to-date content. You've been slinging shows left and right, slinging content left and right. Please don't miss anything. If you do, like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a question, something you may want to answer, something you may have. All ideas are great ideas. Nothing's a dumb question.